ago in the neighboring state called Hyderabad at Care Hospitals. Well, we've been practicing telemedicine over the last decade, and when I say practicing, it's a routine affair that we've been doing it for the last 10 years, and our experiences in telemedicine have been measured up in a number of factors which I'm going to tell you over the presentation. We started in 2001 as a public-private partnership with the government of Andhra Pradesh, and the person who actually initiated this project was our former president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was insisting that we should make healthcare accessible and affordable to all. We had a success in terms of affordability by having India's first indigenous coronary stent developed by CARE, which was aptly called the Kalam Raju stent. And then we wanted to shift to the y-axis, which is the accessibility, and we wanted to see how we could make healthcare accessible to people, and that's when the concept of telemedicine came up in 2001. Our experiences, I'm going to depict over what is the need for telemedicine, although we've had a number of speakers talking about the need, the technology, the methodology, our operations, and epidemiology, which I think people have touched about it, but there's a lot more importance that you can give into this particular field with the help of telemedicine. And how do you evaluate the success to telemedicine? That's a key factor that is going to go in. I'm not going to dwell too much into this particular slide because it's already been spoken about. We've seen a lot of pyramids, triangles coming, and the important aspect that you've got to look in here is that it's an equilateral triangle. No matter which leg you try to pull, it's going to fall. So it's important to know that the basic factors are that large population are in districts and too much of healthcare is available only in the metros. So there's a disparity that comes in, and there's a gross amount of equality in the inequality of distribution of health resources, which is to say that too much is available for too few. A peek into our telemedicine ideology. Why it should be worked, why is it needed? It's all understood because the healthcare per sector has become multidisciplinary. And the important thing that I wanted to highlight on this particular was on point number 4, which says that with this facility, over our experience, we've seen that the movement and outpatient cost almost exceeds 85% than the actual investigation cost. So that's a factor that has to be noted here in understanding why telemedicine is an essentiality. Essentially, it involves integration of 3 technologies: medical technology, information technology, and communication technology. And our experience over the last 10 years has stated that while we can talk of technology being as a catalyst to healthcare delivery, it often also turns to be a deterrent because people try to stress too much on the technology component, forgetting that telemedicine has to be understood as a methodology of practice rather than as a technology. So if telemedicine is to be used as a first opinion, which in most cases happens in India, you'll have to ensure that the compromise on the technology component has to be adjusted accordingly to address the situations composed. High-end technology should alone not determine the effectiveness of telemedicine. When the first component of the technology, when you talk of medical technology, it's not that all medical equipments are compatible with telemedicine. Now, to a large extent, most of the imaging modalities have been taken care because they have the American College of Radiology and NEMA, National Engineers Manufacturing Association, came up with a standard which is called the DICOM standard, which allowed us to interface images into any application software in a simpler way. But what's happened with the smaller devices like the ECGs, the blood pressures, the stethoscopes, you have interfaces which are available today, but each of them come with their own proprietary software or the software which you have to use. Now, you don't want to use an application which has got 10 softwares, or you don't want to monopolize using a particular medical equipment. So I think, one of the standards, if you have standards also for or modalities like the ECG or the STETH to come in a particular format, you should probably be allowing your application softwares to talk to these applications in a more friendly manner. Our installations, primarily we decided in 2001 that we wanted to concentrate as everybody on the ECGs, the echoes, and the CT and MR, followed with the X-rays. One of the reasons why we selected these modalities is any other modality in the healthcare, I think, will fall under the way these 3 modalities fall into. And the methodologies which you need to be used could be real-time or store and forward, or near real-time like what it is in ECG. Now, the interfaces are a very important aspect that you have to see, and how you got to get this interfaces talking to your application software. Simpler devices like the glucometer, BP, and stethoscope, they all have their interfaces available again, but you need to have medical industry coming up forward to say that we'll provide you application programmable interfaces, like probably what Neurosynaptics or Schiller has done to some extent, in saying that you can integrate these devices with your own application software to get the data out and then maintain an EMR. Information technology. Now this word IT stands for income tax or information technology. I'm not too very sure about it, but nevertheless, what happens is the requirements for information technology keeps changing every day. It's probably easier today to find, to set up the requirements for a bride or a bridegroom than to set up the requirements that you need for information technology. That's the dynamic nature of this particular field that is going on, and you have to ensure that you're updated with what is going on. Having said that, it's equally important that you tend to benchmark what is required. I think one of the key factors that I think one has to do in telemedicine is to benchmark the factors that are required in all the three disciplines if you really want to make healthcare effective and deliverable. When we started a project, if you look at the server configuration, I think half of you won't have realized that you would have a server configuration with a 512 MB RAM and a 128 MB RAM for a client. But having said that, we still worked, and it still worked, and we could still deliver. So technology is important, but let's not forget that telemedicine should be considered a practice, and it's not about the technology that is to be evolved in there. Our basic application software, one of the advantages that we had with our system was it was a unique combination of doctors and engineers working together in a hospital environment, which made us develop our own application software for whatever situations, which allowed the turnaround time for us to deploy into different regions was much less because of the fact that we were working directly with the doctors. And we had all the protocols that needed to be taken into consideration. Our softwares may not be the best in the world, but they're definitely deliverable and workable to ensure that you can have these parameters passed across regions around the globe. Benchmarking. Now, if you look at this slide carefully, you would find out that what is the actual bandwidth that you require. You know, your preferences can be a lot. For me to come from Mumbai airport to this venue, if somebody is going to pay for my limousine, I would love to come in that. But if I've got to come by myself, I'll have to know what is the minimum rate that is there available for a cab driver to get me out here. And that's similarly the same instance that needs to be considered when you're going to talk of bandwidths. Now, we had these bandwidths set up here, and if you look at live echocardiography, we did our first echocardiography live on the 25th of October 2001, which was inaugurated by the then Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu ji over a link which was terrestrial, which is BSNL. Now, the requirements have changed today. We had this slide coming up with saying that if you take a typical DICOM image of a CT, one image is about 516 KB, and a typical set of CT would have about 7.5 to 10 MB of data. And if you're going to use a 256 kbps line, it would probably take us about 3 minutes for us to transfer that image. Now, this was what we started off in 2001. Today, with the advent of broadband internet, with 1 Mbps coming up, 2 Mbps coming up practically everywhere, you don't have to worry about these bandwidths. Having said that, it's equally important to know, do not make bandwidth a criteria, high bandwidth a criteria for ensuring that telemedicine cannot be practiced somewhere, because telemedicine can still be practiced with lower bandwidths, and that has been proven. We had a communication technology. I wish we had the opportunity also to work with ISRO. We've not had the opportunity to work with ISRO, but I'm looking forward to ensuring that we also make use of satellite technology. Our initial pilot started off with the Hughes, where we were one of the first users of the KU band in the healthcare sector, and we used it for about 3 months, before which we had to realize that the commercial viability of the project will fail if you've got to pay for the bandwidth, especially if you've got to go to the rural sector. So we decided, let's go on to our old friends, the Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited or the BSNL, and let's go to terrestrial link to see if whether this methodology works. And for us, thankfully, the reliability which is being shown for lease lines is stated at 95% here, but I think we've been lucky that 98% reliability has been achieved even with us with the terrestrial link at 256 kbps. System architecture, I think this is pretty much, I think most of us have gone through these slides earlier, and we said that that you need to have a user-friendly architecture. You should be modular platform to allow new sensors to be attached while you follow all the protocols of HL7, DICOM standards, or the clinical ICD procedures that go on. Now, the real-time and store and forward methodology, I don't think I have to state much, because I think these are pretty much the factors that I think all of us know about here. But this is a typical workflow of what happens in telemedicine in us. I think it happens globally, but this is just a slide to pictorially represent what happens when each modality is connected to a client and how they get archived into a global server, and then it is read by a specialist at a different end. How do you stage adoption of new techniques in medicine? Now, the first stage that we have got to look at is, does it work at the technical level, which means you have to have a set of parameters to judge, to know whether it works at a parameter level. Is it cost effective, and does it work at the technical level? And how do you widespread it, and is it cost effective? Now, one of the factors that we looked in, due to shortage of time, I'm going to skip some slides, but I've got to state some particular aspects here, which is bandwidth. You know, the key for bandwidth is it's directly proportional to image resolution and cost, and inversely proportional to transmission time. This is the only slide that you've got to know. This is the only formula that you've got to know, and this is the only requirement that you've got to understand. Our centers have been with Mehboob Nagar, which is our factor, and we've done a little bit of international telemedicine with a center in Nigeria. Have you ever seen a cardiologist so very relaxed when he's performing an echocardiogram? And this is on the picture on the left, shows how relaxed he is when he's viewing a real-time echocardiogram, which is probably provided to him by a paramedic on the other side. And the factor that the earlier speaker was stating is very important. We had these doctors go in for almost 3 months every weekend to this district hospital just to ensure that they're familiar with the face of the doctor, and the face of the doctor now came in through video conferencing, and that's how the patients accepting the technology comes. The patients are really not worried whether you're selling it through a BlackBerry or a Strawberry. They're really not worried about it. They're only worried about seeing whether they are happy with the service that the doctor is giving to them. We are also one of the partners of the Pan-African Network. In fact, we are the first nodal center to be integrated in the Pan-African Network for the Black Line Hospital in Addis Ababa. Some of the statistics, which is interesting for us to see, is, you know, we had the statistics lined up from Mehboob Nagar. The table on the top shows about Mehboob Nagar, and the one bottom is with a center in Nigeria. And if you see the number of cases that have been done, we've done approximately about 25,000 cases from the district hospital. And the interesting aspect that came across with this is, almost 60% of them could be treated without them having to travel further for further investigations. And that's a sizable number. And this was vetted by PricewaterhouseCoopers. We did a similar cost-effective feature in saying that what would it cost for this person to come to the city and get an investigation done. And PricewaterhouseCoopers vetted out, and we found that 86% of them benefited because of this technology which is being in there. The same thing happened with echocardiography, a 73% benefit because of the cost of the investigation. Now, epidemiological database, I'll just take 2 minutes more, that's about it. But epidemiological database is the fact that, you know, we have a prevalence pattern that has been set up because of this. You will get to know what the diseases are, and having gone into the coronary stream, we realized that the lesser indicators like hypertension and diabetes are more important for us to have a prevalence. And that's how this telemedicine database, we are trying to data mine, data pool, trying to get the basic indicators that are needed to find out, because telemedicine is not only curative, telemedicine, if used intelligently, can bring back the old saying, prevention is better than cure, if you get to know what is going on across a region. Now, multiple centers should work with different revenue models, obviously, if you want to make it as sustainable. Success in telemedicine, this is the last slide that I want to talk about. It's very difficult to measure the success, because if you look at the car, what you call as a successful car, is it the fastest, the most expensive, the most produced, or the safest? You don't know. All of them are successful. So we wanted to bring up some possible indicators for telemedicine and said that routine operation, mainly clinical activity, cost effectiveness, and sustainable operations are what you have to look at the possible indicators, but the core indices remain that clinical quality and cost are the indices that you have to look across to ensure that telemedicine is a success parameter. I think with this, it's more important. Technology is there. It's going to keep growing. It's always going to keep growing. I don't think we should stop the practice, talk only about technology here. We should look at ensuring that practitioners use this more effectively, and we should stop searching for costlier and less appropriate technology in the name of latest and better technology, if you've got to take this forward. Now, that's about it, and I would, this was what the former president, Dr. Kalam, had said in 2005 when we had our inauguration and which we had our implementation when he said in 2001 that he wanted 100 telemedicine units by 2005. I'm sure we had more than 100 by then, and I hope that in the coming years by his Vision 2020, we'd have more number of practicing telemedicine units coming up. That's our team. It's a very important team because if you see, all of them are smiling, and as long as they are smiling, I'm sure telemedicine will be a success for us. Thank you so much.
Okay,